Let's learn to generate maps using a noise texture. Alright, so to get ourselves set up with creating this, we need two things. One, we're going to need the tile set that we want to use. And two, well, we're going to need to set up some variables, which shouldn't be too hard. One of those being our actual noise texture. So alright, first up, I'm going to use a tile map layer. If you're using an old version, you could use tile map, but if you're using the most up-to-date version of Godot, this is going to be discontinued. It's not the right word that I'm thinking of, but it's the only one that's coming to mind. But you know what? We can actually just see it if we just go in here. Tile map, yes, right there. Deprecated. There's the word. And it's being deprecated, so you're gonna have to use the tile map layer anyway. It's no real big difference aside from you need a separate node for every layer you want to add. Functions are exactly the same, aside from the difference of you not having to pass in the layer into the functions. If you're using a tile map, you do have to pass the layer index in. But for us, I've gone ahead, I just created a tile set of 32 by 32. And it just consists of a green square and a blue square, one to represent grass, one to represent water. Now keep in mind of your Atlas ID here inside the tile set section. Now if you wanted to change this to something else, you could. I don't really see any reason for it. But if you want to use specific numbers in your project, then you can certainly do that here. But I'm just going to leave that so that my Atlas ID is going to be 0, and that's important because we're going to need to reference that later. And the other locations I'm getting is if I go to select tile, is that going to be here? Yes. So if I go to select tile, you can see my Atlas coordinates is, in this case, 0, 0 for my grass, and 1, 0 for my water. We're going to be referencing these numbers later as well. So if you're working with more than 2 tiles, or maybe you're a little confused with your 2 tiles, just keep in mind this is where you can find this info for the tiles that you want to use. Alright, so next up I have our node 2D, which, as you can see, I have a variable exported out, TML, for my tile map layer, so I can go ahead and get that and assign that since it's exported. I have 2 integers exported here, one for my terrain height and one for the terrain width. This is going to be the size of grid that I'm generating here. Now if you're using the default, which I believe it's 1024 by 6 something, I could be off of that, but I'm pretty sure that's what the default numbers are on our new project. 20 by 36 if you're using 32 by 32 tiles. Fill up this whole area perfectly. So obviously you can change this to be as big as you want. I'm just setting it just for this one screen, but you know, it's completely up to you. And of course your tile size is going to matter. I've also exported a noise, and all I've done is just created a quick noise section here. Right, so I just come in here and I go new fast noise light, and that's it. That's all I've done. And all of this other information, especially our fractal data down here, our seed, our frequency, things like that, we're going to randomize all of that inside of the script. So let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so inside of our script, you can see my exported things here. So I have my noise, my tile map layer, and our 2 integers for the height and width. Going down into our ready function, I'm going to call randomize just to ensure everything is completely random every time the game runs. And here we go. We're going to use ready to get a random integer for our seed. And like I said, we're going to tweak everything of our noise properties. So we're going to change the fractal octaves to a random number between 1 and 10. Why 1 and 10? Because that's the min and max values on that slider. It's as simple as that. The fractal gain with 0.5 and 1.0. Again, you could go higher. You could go insanely high, but I wouldn't recommend. As you see in the noise preview there, it's a little insane. But if we keep it relatively low, you can see we can get different results here in this small range. So that's why I'm using 0.5 and 1.0. And remember, that's a rand F range, so that's a random float. Fractal, I'm not quite sure how to say that. Lacunarity. Again, I'm just using numbers between 1 and 6. Could go negative, it doesn't matter. Again, you could go above 6 and it's perfectly fine. I'm just not going to. So if you want to tweak those numbers on your Lacunarity, I was going to say gain, you can certainly do that if you want. These are all numbers that you can tweak to your own satisfaction here. And remember, the wider the range, the more random it could be. Frequency, again, I just wanted 0.1 and 0.7. Where is that? That's right up here. And as you can see, that's just kind of going with like scaling the actual noise texture here. So 1 is kind of like the entire thing, and as we go lower, we're almost like zooming in, right? And as you see, you can go to 0.001 if you wanted to go all the way zoomed in like this. You could, it's an option. But myself, I'm using 0.1 to 0.7. Then I'm going to call the generate train function, which is a function we're going to create here in a moment. And for what you were seeing in the beginning, I just went ahead and waited for 1 second and then just reloaded the scene so I can get these constant trains generating on screen just by sitting here and letting it run to give you an idea of some of the results we could get. So to give you an idea here as well, if we take a look at the range, so let's say I come in here, just changing the frequency to, I believe it was 3 zeros, right? And if we just set it like that, we can take a look. Maybe we'll get something crazy right off the bat. So you can, oh, we had all blues there. So we see we can get some quite zoomed in options. And yeah, a lot of this is going to be just the one color, which is why I'm not going this low, right? It's a little insane. Even if we just remove one of those zeros, it's still going to be pretty insane. Oh, there we go. We got one, and all right. You can see we're getting a lot of just plain blues in this case. So myself, again, I'm just going 0.1 and 0.7. You can tweak those to your own desire. All right, now the actual generate train function that we're creating. So first thing is I'm going to create a variable to hold the Atlas ID. Remember, I showed you where to get that in your tile map layer. In the tile set section, under setup, you got your ID of your tile map. Mine's 0, so I put it in there. And I'm just going to run through a 4x and 4y inside of our width and height so we can get a full grid. And here's our meat and potatoes. So I have a variable for the noise value. And what this is going to do is this is going to take our noise texture called getNoise2D, and it's going to use, it's going to use this coordinate in order to get and return back a value. And that value, of course, is going to be based on the grayscale, right? Between black and white, 0 and 1 kind of value. And that's kind of what we're going to be looking at here. So based off of that gray scale, we can determine what tile we want to place. So I've gone ahead and created a tile coordinate variable here. And that's going to hold our tiles here, 0, 0, and 0, 1. Sorry, 1, 0. And then I've gone into created a dictionary for my tiles just so we don't have any of these quote unquote magic numbers floating around, and we can just look at it and know exactly what tile we're looking at when it comes to our determinations down below. So I've got my grass set as a vector 2i, because that's what they are, as a 0, 0, and my water as a 1, 0. And then here's our determination. So I'm checking if my noise value is greater than 0.01. then it's going to be grass. If it's 0.01 or lower, right, because that would be our else in this case, then I'm going to assign it to my water tile. And then all I'm doing is getting my tile map layer, calling set cell, passing in the coordinates that I want to set, passing in that atlas ID, and passing in the tile coordinate, which is either going to be our grass tile or water tile. And that's it. And as this runs, you can see we're getting all different kinds of maps. And if you wanted, you could come in here and you could change this. Let's say 0.1 instead of 0.01. And we're going to get some drastically different results coming in here. I'm going to have a lot more water. Whoops. Right, let's say even 0.5. So we're going to have island setups with this, just by changing this one number that we have in here. So instead of having a lot of land, we have a lot of water. 0.3. Let's try that and see what kind of results we get. See, so now we're getting a lot of these islands popping up. So you can see just by tweaking just this one number here, we can affect the entire generation of the map, or the entire type of maps that we're getting. So if you're using more than 2 of these tiles, now obviously you can come in, you hit LF, noise is this, greater than this, or less than this, whatever you want to do. Use this tile, and you can pass those in. But that's all we really need to do for our noise. So basically, to summarize this, we create a noise, either through the inspector or through randomizing numbers like we do up top for all our values. We go through the X and Y of our grid to determine how big we want our map. And all we're doing is getting the noise value and setting the cell. At the end of the day, those are the only 2 things that we're doing. Get a noise value and set the cell based off of that value. All right. So hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully you guys learned something with it. And hopefully you guys can generate some pretty cool maps for yourself. Oh, I do want to note one thing. You could use this in a tool. So if you wanted to be maybe a little lazy in your generation, in your mapping, like I said, I have the tool keyword up top here. And since I have that, all I have to do is just reopen my map. Boom. And now I have a map automatically generated for me. And every time I open up that scene, I'm going to have a new generation. So you could use it that way if you wanted to put the tool keyword at the top. And then that's just one less thing that you kind of have to think about as you're going about your game. If you wanted to put it, have an update in the editor like this. And I believe in the next branch, you'll be able to put a button inside the inspector and assign that to something. So then you can just create a generate button right there on the side, which will be great. For now, as you see, you can set it up in the inspector using the tool keyword at the top of your script, and you can have it automatically generate within game once it launches if you wanted. All right, I'm just going to be talking in circles, so I'm going to get going. Take care, have yourselves a good one, and I'll see you guys in the next video.